Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm always super excited to be back with you guys. And today we're going to be talking about something that was just so important to me personally. And that is how to unlock creativity in our kids.
Oh, I love it.
It feels like sometimes we just get so caught up in, getting them into the right coding classes or, all the structured activities. Like, are we really nurturing that kind of free-flowing imagination?
It's funny you should say that because when we think about creativity, it's easy to just jump to like the classic picture, finger paints everywhere. The kitchen's a disaster, but it is so much more than that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's giving them the tools to think outside the box, to solve problems in new ways, to really adapt to whatever life throws at them.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're
Yeah.
diving into today. All those fun, simple ways to encourage that creative spirit.
I love it.
And it could be through anything. We're
Wow.
talking music, we're talking storytelling, outdoor adventures, even something as surprising as toilet paper rolls.
Toilet paper rolls. Okay, you got to tell me more.
Well, we came across this story about a mom whose son just wasn't into traditional art. She was trying to get him to draw and paint, and it just wasn't happening. But then she started leaving out things like toilet paper rolls, cardboard boxes tape.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly he was building these amazing sculptures.
Mm.
He was just completely in his own world.
I love that. And it's such a good example of how everyday objects can be these amazing catalysts for creativity. It's like we
Yeah.
don't need all the fancy supplies or expensive programs. It's more about creating a space where kids feel free to experiment, and express themselves without being worried about making it perfect.
Yeah, like no judgment.
Exactly.
So let's get practical here. Where do we even begin?
Okay.
Because I think a lot of parents, and I'll include myself here, we can feel a little overwhelmed by this idea of like, okay, do we need a dedicated art space or we're
Yeah.
constantly having to come up with these elaborate activities?
Yeah, I hear you. It doesn't have to be overwhelming at all.
Okay.
We can start small. Even just designating a corner of the living room, the kitchen could be our imagination station.
I love it.
Stock it with some basic supplies, crayons, markers, paper, and just let them loose.
Okay.
And, the key here is focusing on the process, not the product.
That's so important.
So instead of, praising the perfect drawing, encourage their exploration, of color, texture, shape. Like, wow, look at all the different blues that you used, or I love how you mix those colors together.
That is such a good point. It's really about shifting that focus from like the outcome to the process. And that applies to other creative avenues too, right? Like,
Yeah.
what about music?
Absolutely. You don't need to sign them up for lessons right away. Just create those opportunities to explore sound and rhythm.
Yes.
Have a family jam session with pots and pans and wooden spoons.
I love that.
Turn those empty containers into shakers, fill them with rice or beans.
Yeah.
Let's get loud.
I love that making music accessible and fun.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this story about this dad who noticed his 4-year-old composing these little songs on a toy piano.
Oh, wow.
And he was using kitchen utensils as instruments. And they even started doing this recording day ritual
How cool.
to just capture those spontaneous bursts of creativity.
What a beautiful way to encourage self-expression. And, it really just speaks to the power of recognizing and celebrating those everyday moments of creativity. Because, you know what? Children are inherently musical beings.
Yes.
They just need that space and the encouragement to explore it.
Okay, so we've talked about art, we've talked about music.
Yeah.
What about storytelling? I think we all know how much kids just love a good bedtime story.
Oh, yeah. Bedtime stories are the best.
The best.
Storytelling is so powerful. It not only helps develop language skills, but it opens up this whole world of imagination and possibility.
Totally.
It's like a gateway drug to creative thinking.
I love that. Okay, so beyond reading books together,
Yeah.
how can we encourage them to create their own stories?
Ooh, fun one is the story prompt game. You start a sentence like, once upon a time there was a magical tree house, and then your child finishes the story. Or you take turns adding sentences and you build this collaborative narrative.
I've actually tried that with my kids. And it's amazing what they come up with. Sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's super imaginative, but they're always so engaged
Yeah.
and excited to share their ideas.
Mm.
It reminds me of this family who turned bedtime into this whole storytelling adventure with their stuffed animals.
Oh, that's so cute.
They were creating these elaborate, hilarious plots together.
That's such a heartwarming example, and it shows how creativity can become just a natural part of family life.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be limited to these structured activities either. Sometimes the most magical creative moments happen during unstructured play.
You mean like pretend play?
Exactly.
Because I know my kids can spend hours lost in their imaginary worlds, like our living room transforms into a pirate ship or a magical forest.
Oh, I love it. Yes, pretend play is a gold mine for developing creativity, problem-solving social skills. It's where they get to experiment with different roles, scenarios, solutions,
Yeah.
and it's all in this safe imaginary space.
It's amazing.
And the best part, it's completely child-led. We
Yes.
just need to provide this space and maybe a few simple props.
Right, like a designated play area, maybe some old clothes
Ah,
or
yes.
dress-up cardboard boxes to build forts,
Yes.
even pots and pans from the kitchen.
One mom shared this great example. She turned her kitchen into a restaurant with her kids,
Oh, fun.
complete with a menu they created and a pretend cash register.
I love it.
They took turns being chefs, waiters, customers. It was a fun way to encourage that imaginative play, but also, subtly incorporating some math and social skills.
Such a clever idea. It shows how creativity can really be woven into those everyday activities.
Absolutely.
But, sometimes I think the best inspiration comes from stepping outside of our homes and into the natural world.
Yes, the great outdoors nature is just this phenomenal catalyst for creativity.
Yeah.
The textures, the colors, the sounds, it's a sensory playground just begging to be explored.
And there's so many ways to encourage that kind of nature-inspired creativity. You can do it a nature scavenger hunt,
Yeah.
leading to outdoor art projects with found objects, or just bring out some chalk and let them draw on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
inspired by all the shapes and colors around them.
It reminds me of this dad who shared a story about his kids building these elaborate fairy gardens in their backyard,
Oh, fun.
using rocks, twigs, and their imagination.
I love it.
It became their favorite outdoor activity. It was showcasing just the magic of nature-based play.
Those fairy gardens sound magical. I bet they spent hours creating those little worlds. And speaking of expressing thoughts and ideas, let's explore the world of writing and journaling. It seems like such a simple activity, but it can be incredibly powerful for developing creativity.
You're absolutely right. Even before kids can write full sentences, they can use writing and drawing to organize their thoughts, to explore possibilities, to really unleash their imaginations.
Yeah.
A simple story journal can be a wonderful tool for this.
I love that idea. So each day they can write or draw about their day,
Yeah.
invent a short story,
Yeah.
maybe jot down something funny that happened.
Exactly. And to make it even more engaging, you can introduce creative prompts like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? Or describe your dream adventure.
Those are great prompts. It reminds me of this parent who shared how her daughter started a dream journal
Oh, cool.
where she'd capture her thoughts and ideas through drawings and descriptions. It became this beautiful outlet for her creativity and just a fascinating window into her inner world.
That's a wonderful example of how writing, even in its simplest form, can unlock a child's inner creativity.
And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's important to remember,
That fostering creativity isn't about forcing kids into these rigid artistic molds or pressuring them to be prodigies.
right, it's about
It's about creating that nurturing environment where they feel safe to experiment and explore and express themselves in their own unique ways. Think of it like planting these seeds of creativity. We're providing the fertile ground and their imaginations do the rest.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So as we kind of move from these specific activities to some broader tips, what are some key takeaways for our listeners, who are really eager to cultivate that creative spirit in their children?
Well, one of the most important things is to embrace those open-ended activities, the things that don't have a right or wrong answer, where the journey is more important than the destination.
Right.
This gives kids the freedom to think divergently, to try new things, without being afraid to fail.
I think a lot of parents, myself included, might need a little help understanding what that actually looks like.
Yeah.
You know, can you give us some more concrete examples of what those open-ended activities might be?
Absolutely. Think about building blocks.
Yeah.
Instead of giving them specific instructions to build a house, you just provide a variety of blocks and let them create whatever they can imagine.
Oh, I see.
It could be a castle, a spaceship, an abstract sculpture. The possibilities are endless.
That's a great example. And it reminds me of another important point you touched on earlier about the power of praise and encouragement. But how do we praise in a way that fosters creativity rather than stifling it?
That's such a great question. You want to praise their effort, their process, their unique ideas, not just the final product. So instead of saying, oh, that's a beautiful drawing, try saying, wow, I love how you use so many different colors and textures in your artwork. Tell me about what inspired you.
It's about acknowledging those creative choices, encouraging them to think about the why behind their creations. I think it's also important to remember that we as parents play a crucial role in shaping that creative environment.
Yeah.
Our actions really do speak volumes.
Absolutely. If we want our kids to be creative thinkers, we need to model that behavior in our own lives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be these huge, grand gestures.
Right.
It could be as simple as trying a new recipe, picking up a paintbrush, or even just engaging in a playful conversation.
I completely agree. It's about showing them that creativity isn't just for kids. It's this lifelong journey of exploration and discovery. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is just give them the space and time to explore their own interests.
You've hit on such a crucial point, unstructured time.
Yes.
It's like a blank canvas for creativity.
It is.
That's where true innovation and discovery happen. Think about it. When kids are left to their own devices, they start to daydream, tinker, experiment, come up with their own games and activities.
It's those moments of quiet contemplation where they're not bombarded with screens or structured activities that their imaginations really do come alive. I know I've witnessed some of my kids' most creative moments when they've just been given that freedom to just be.
And those moments are so important for developing their sense of self, their problem-solving skills, their ability to think independently. It's about giving them the space to be bored, to get messy, to make mistakes, and to learn through play.
It reminds me of that famous Einstein quote, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." And we need to let our kids have fun, to embrace the chaos, to not be afraid to get their hands dirty, to experiment without that fear of judgment.
We've talked a lot about the practical aspects of fostering creativity, but I think it's also important to remember that emotional side of things as well, creativity isn't just about problem solving and adaptability. It's also about self-expression, emotional intelligence, and building confidence. When children feel safe to express themselves creatively, it boosts their self-esteem, it helps them process their emotions, and it allows them to connect with the world around them in a much deeper, more meaningful way.
That's such an important point, and I think it ties back to what we were saying earlier about the praise and encouragement when we celebrate their unique ideas and those creative expressions. We're not just validating their artistic abilities, we're affirming their worth as individuals. We're saying, your thoughts and ideas matter. You are seen. You are valued.
Exactly. And that sense of validation can have such a profound impact on their overall well-being, not just their creative development.
As we wrap up this incredible conversation, I'm feeling so inspired to continue nurturing that creative spark in my own children and those around me. What final thought would you leave our listeners with, something to really make them think about the power of creativity in their kids' lives?
We've talked about all the benefits, the activities, the tips and tricks, but I think the most important thing to remember is that creativity is a gift.
A gift?
Yes, a gift that we can give our children, a gift that will enrich their lives and inspire them for years to come. It's a gift that allows them to see the world through a different lens, to find joy in the simple things, to connect with their emotions, and to make their own unique mark on the world. And who knows, you might just rediscover your own creative spirit along the way.
That's beautifully said. It's a reminder that fostering creativity isn't just about equipping them with valuable skills. It's about nurturing their hearts and souls. It really is. It's about so much more than just, arts and crafts. It's about fostering that sense of wonder and possibility, that ability to see the world through their eyes and find that magic in the everyday.
And as we've seen today, it doesn't require, the expensive toys or those elaborate setups.
Right.
Sometimes the simplest things, a cardboard box, a nature walk, can spark the most incredible creative adventures.
Speaking of finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, I have a little challenge for you guys listening at home, a thought-provoking question to kind of carry with you as you continue on this journey of nurturing that creativity.
Ooh, I'm all ears.
It's a challenge. So remember that mom whose son discovered his artistic passion through trash sculptures, those toilet paper rolls and masking tape masterpieces?
Yeah.
It got me thinking, what unexpected household item could you turn into a tool for creative play with your child?
I love that it's like an invitation to look around our homes with a fresh perspective, to see the creative potential in those everyday objects.
Totally.
A colander could become a musical instrument. A sheet could be a magical canopy. A pile of old clothes is a costume box for 1,000 different characters. The possibilities really are endless.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole journey so exciting. It's about fostering that sense of wonder and possibility, not just in our children, but in ourselves as well.
Yeah.
So to all you amazing listeners out there, go forth and unleash that creative magic. Embrace the mess, celebrate the unconventional, and watch as your children's imaginations soar. And who knows, you might just rediscover your own creative spirit along the way.
It's been such a joy diving deep into this topic with you. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.
Happy creating, everyone.